partners in large law firms are women. And although I would love to say that I only have to compete with myself, I, at least at this stage of my life, I do feel, rightly or wrongly, that that I am, in order to be successful, part of my job is to develop business, and in order to do that, I'm competing with mostly men because of the nature of my business to get those wonderful clients. Not all my clients are as enlightened as Meredith and as Rafael Cardoza, who think that having a woman lawyer is awesome. So some of them I have to sell a little bit more than others, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what I'm really concerned, and this is not just about service-based industries, because I've made it as universal as I can. But to get started, I always start with this because I think that it is something that tends to be overlooked. The importance of expertise, being the best in your business. Clients, customers, and bosses pay for expertise. In addition to expertise, though, these are the things that are important. Developing relationships, professionalism, communication, just like you were saying, confidence, and differentiating yourself among many others. And I think that although expertise, I think, is something that is relatively universal, I think that women, for the most part, can be much better at this stuff than we give ourselves credit for. And I think we are better than we give ourselves credit for. What are really the keys to business development? Service-oriented quality work. Knowing the value of what you do. Now, I will tell you, for those of you who sell your services, whether it's your time or your expertise, how many of you have ever met a potential new client that you are so excited about? And they ask you, how much do you charge? And the first thing you do in the brain is discount your rate. You haven't even said anything, and you've already given them a discount. I did it for years and years and years, and I was very lucky that I had a female partner who since retired from the practice. She was a very, very prominent real estate lawyer. And she once told me, you set your rate, you stay with your rate. No man discounts his rate before he says it. It is something that we automatically do. And I feel much better and I'm much more confident about what I do that I don't discount my rate. Leadership. You guys are all here because you're leaders. I tell this, and I know that I'm not a leadership expert like many of you, and certainly not like our professor, but I've made it as simple as I can when I'm teaching leadership, especially to young women. Said if you want to know who the best leaders are in the room, find the person who treats the janitor exactly the same as the CEO. Don't really care from there. You'll figure the rest out. But if you've ever been in a room, or if you've ever been managed by someone who manages up, we all know what that means. Really, really nice to the people ahead of them and really cruddy to the people behind them. Those people may get to a certain part, but my experience is they never get all the way. Because they'll get caught eventually. You know, eventually, and I had an attorney here in this office who made partner, and he didn't think I was in the office, and I heard him scream at his secretary. And I took him into a room and I said, if I had the authority to withdraw your partnership, I would do it now. And you will find that those folks don't get as far as we think they are. But I think that the most important factor which distinguishes business developments are integration into your day-to-day activities. If you feel that business development is, and I'm going to talk about the difference between marketing and business development, at least from my perspective, but if you think business development is something that's in a pile over here that you have to do, you do your work and then you do your business development, you're not doing yourself any favors. In my universe anyway, the fact that you are all here is a business development issue and a business development opportunity. I have the privilege of representing two. I have the privilege of working with one of my teammates here. And there is not a day that goes by where I'll see an article, and of course now with everything in the news it's pretty easy to find these articles, but something going on that I think it's of interest to a client and I'll just send it. I still have note cards on paper with my name on them, Cheryl Wilke. And I still send real grown-up thank you cards. Okay. Now, does anybody open them? No clue. But I send them. And I will tell you, though, that most of the time, I will get a call to say, you know, all I get is emails. I get 350 emails a day. It was so nice to get a card. So I think that some of those things that distinguish you in the day-to-day practice are crucially important. I believe, and I have seen this firsthand, that what makes us as women and distinguishes almost every one of us from men is that when we meet a client or a potential client or our boss or whomever that we're going to be working for, with, or about, the first thing that men start to do, that in my experience, and it isn't universal, but it's pretty close, they start talking about themselves, what they can do and how they can do it. I can do this. I have experience doing this. Here's the things I can do. The first time I met Meredith, I sat with Meredith and I said, Meredith, what do you need? How can I help? How wonderful is that? How wonderful is the ability to go to anybody and be able to solve their problems? And it is something that, from a professional standpoint, gives me as much pleasure as making money doing it. And it is what makes us different. And I think that if you incorporate those two questions into everything that you do, you are bound to be successful. How it all fits together. Business development, expertise, services. My little lines didn't come out very good, but these are little arrows. But it really is kind of all one picture, and I'm sure these ladies, Susan and her team could give you exactly why this works. I know that it works. I don't necessarily know why it works, but I do know that if you integrate your expertise, if you focus on only being the best at what you do, you're going to be one of those people, and this happens to men and women, and I'm sure we all know somebody like this. I know an attorney who is the foremost expert in the world on litigating cases involving diving equipment. Now, I realize that sounds very strange, but somebody has to do it. And he is the only person in the world who defends all these diving equipment manufacturers when they say the regulators failed and people get sick or hurt or die or whatever. He is the only person in the world who does this. He can't find his car in the parking garage. I swear to God, you can hear him go downstairs and push the button and set the alarm off so he can go find his car. He has all of this. He has a little of this just because he's built a name for himself. He has none of this. Everything that he gets comes to him. He does not get any of it. And there are times when he has nothing to do. There are days when I would sell my life to have nothing to do. But nonetheless, that's the situation. I have found this model for business development, and I don't care what your business is, works all day, every time. And again, my arrows don't show up over here. And for cross-selling, you start with your network. Out of the wonderful network, which is all the people that you know professionally, that you work with, you're going to develop contacts. You're going to develop people that you feel comfortable reaching out the phone and saying, hey, listen, I called this nice lady and say, hey, can you help Paige? Those are your contacts, people that you feel comfortable relating to, reaching out to. Hopefully they feel the same about you. Your contacts become your relationships. These are the people who are central to your universe. These are the people that you don't just pick up the call to say, can you help, but it's, can you help me? Or do you know someone who does X? And those relationships are so important because they allow you to cross-market. These are the people who are your marketing team. So when you have those relationships, if someone came to Susan and said, I'm getting sued for sexual harassment, I have no idea what to do, Susan is part of my relationship team. She can call and say, I know the perfect person. She is doing my business development for me. I represent some restaurants, and I've been able to get those restaurants to start using delivery dudes. So your relationships become your best business developers. These are the people who reach out to you for advice and that you are able to give advice back and forth. And then, of course, out of your relationships become your clients. And I have found that none of this matters as far as what you do. It starts with your network. It becomes your relationship, your contacts. Your contacts become your relationships become your clients. This is, and I know that all of the people in this room who have business degrees, which I have an English degree and an art history degree, because I'm supposed to be an artist, but somehow I ended up being a lawyer, are going to probably tell me that this is way too simplistic and may, in fact, be incorrect. But in my universe, and in the universe that I work in on a regular basis, marketing includes things like research materials, insight, history, experience in particular fields with particular clients, support, and things like that. Where I live, business development is my plan. It's what I need to do to further my business. And it's integrated with whatever group I'm in. In my case, it's labor and employment, my firm, whatever. It helps you with your relationships, your commitment, and your communication. This is your business development. How you use your relationships, your commitment, and your communication to build your business. Marketing is the support that you use to do that. Now, like I said, I'm sure that this lady's probably going to kill me. But that is a very simplistic view, and that is just an experience view. It is certainly not an academic one. But it has worked for me. When I stopped thinking that marketing was going to go get me clients, And then I realized that that's not what they do, and that's okay that that's not what they do. That's okay. But they are supposed to help me with the tools to do my own business development. What makes you special? Think of traits that you have that would distinguish you from others in the field. Write and speak in your field. Get out there, see the world. Community service. I will tell you that some of the best clients that I have, I'm blessed to represent WSVN down in Miami, interesting client, and they are very, very committed to Habitat for Humanity. That is their integrated charitable endeavor. And I asked, can I go on a Saturday and I can paint? I'm a good painter. I'm supposed to be an artist. But I can paint walls too, not just pretty things. And they were so excited that I wanted to participate with their community service. In December, my legal assistant, who some of you may have seen come in and meet with Meredith, she is from Puerto Rico, born and raised. After Hurricane Maria, she spent 3 weeks unable to reach her brother, her sister-in-law, and their families. They live up in the mountains in Veracruz. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And we talked a lot about how we could make a difference as an office. And we purchased, wrapped, and shipped 72 Christmas gifts. I flew down there, brought Amy with me, and we gave them to special needs kids in Puerto Rico. It will be the only Christmas present, it was the only Christmas present that many of them received. It made me a totally different person. I don't have children, never wanted them. As a result, I don't have those mommy immunity genes, so I got sick as a dog, sort of bugs they got. I was down for the count, I'm completely incapacitated for like a week at Christmas time, but it was worth every Advil that I had to take. This is what makes you special. The Broward Sun-Sentinel picked up the story, they ran the story. I was contacted by people thinking it was a very rewarding thing. It's what makes you different. And it's what you naturally want to do anyway. Women are innately want to help. Take your help and make it into a business development opportunity. Willingness to understand your clients and your boss's needs. And this is where I'm going to embarrass Meredith just a little bit, because I see service as a partnership. And I got to be a dudette. I was interviewed by Meredith, and I listened to the business people who were with Meredith, and I was struggling because I'm pretty good at this stuff, but I couldn't figure out how they made money. I couldn't figure out how the business model actually worked. And it's like, wow, but it's only $5 delivery. How are you going to, I couldn't quite figure out how it was. And I said, listen, I realize that I'm not the brightest light on the porch, but could I spend a day driving around with your drivers? Could I just spend a shift so that I can see how they get the food and what they do and where they take it and how they bring in their stuff and with the red bags? And could I just do that? Could I spend a day doing that? And I don't know this for sure, and I'm not going to embarrass Meredith, but I think one of the reasons I got the job, because I interviewed some attorneys at some very fancy schmancy firms, which I am not, I enjoyed that, and now when Meredith and I talk, she doesn't have to start all over again with how the business works, because I spent a day doing it. Now, I'm going to show, because this is one of my favorite things, a little bit about how men do that for a day, and Dwight says, I'm going to tell you what you need. And I think that as women, that is one of the ways that we can clearly distinguish ourselves, because our job is to be partners with our clients. In my expertise, business development comes in 3 types: strategic, tactical, and opportunistic. The strategic stuff is the group's business plan. This is what, whether it's your company or your individual department or whatever subset you work within, it's what the goal of the company is. It's collaborative. We're all supposed to get together and decide what we're going to do. It's cumulative. It's based on mistakes that we've made in the past and cumulative knowledge. It's anticipatory. What's going to happen in the future? What's our market going to look like if we have enough data? I have enough data. What are we going to look like in 5 years? Okay. Aspirational. What do we want to be when we grow up? How do we want to be different? And it's accountable. If you don't succeed in this, you probably won't succeed. So it's the roadmap to the future of your group. It's the Department of Business. It's what you do for your business. And it is important that although we might not be the people who are making the strategy, it is important that we are collaborative with it. Because if you have a company, if you work for a company whose primary goal is to construct bridges and you are focused on the manufacture of shoes, that's probably not going to work. So even though you might be really, really, really good at making shoes, that's not part of the process and everybody gets frustrated. And even though I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't really understand the strategy of my group, I feel that it's your responsibility to figure out what it is. And here's the key: if they can't tell you, you're probably working at the wrong place. Because if they don't know, then being there is going to spend a lot of time spinning a lot of wheels, being very frustrated, doing everything that you think you're supposed to do, but since they don't know what they want, you're just, it's apples and giraffes. It's not even close to the same thing. Now, tactical is the execution. It's individual. This is what you do. Everyone does their part. It's integrated. It must be, part of your process being a lawyer, a doctor, a professor, whatever it is. The amount of time spent on focusing on business development is inversely related to the amount of crud on your desk. How do I know that? Because when I'm really busy and I have really cool stuff on my desk, it's like, wow, this is fun. I don't need to do anything else because I have enough stuff. And then you don't. The best time to do business development is when you're the busiest, because that's when your network is the biggest. That's when your contacts are the most, they're right there, they're on your desk. Got 80 gazillion things going on. The saddest thing that happens to me, because I am the chief of business development for my firm, the saddest thing that happens to me is a wonderful attorney, male, female, doesn't make any difference, who due to no fault of their own, a merger and acquisition, a company that goes bankrupt, whatever it is, they lose their best client. And they have nothing in the pipeline. And they come to me and they say, I gotta have stuff on my desk like today. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. The best time to do business development is when you're absolutely at your busiest. Yes, ma'am.
But how do you do that? Because technically you're
This!
overwhelmed. But
No, it is true. And what I do,
practically speaking, if you have a pad on your desk
right.
this big and you have to deliver this, how you practically do that?
And there is an art to it. What I have done is, and I can give you a good example with Raphael. Raphael and the team over there had me swamped a couple months ago. I mean, it was 80% of my time solving a whole bunch of problems. At the same time, I have a client who's a hotel who was driving me a little bit nuts. And I said, you know what? You need to improve your marketing. I'm going to have you talk to Dave Spector over at Tampa. So I made that connection. My client was so happy with me that they gave me a whole bunch of new projects on the hotel side. And I made them happy. Sometimes it's nothing more than an introduction of the stuff you have on your desk.
Okay.
It isn't necessarily, I don't eat lunch. I've never been a lunch eater. If I eat in the afternoon, I need a nap. What? I'm old. Yeah, never been a lunch eater. Big breakfast. I'm from the Midwest. We eat in the morning. So I'm not much on going out to lunch. But I can always find time to have breakfast, coffee. It has to fit with your personality. I don't have children, so it's easier for me to have cocktails in the afternoon, but it's also easy for me to have breakfast. I understand, although I can empathize, but I don't understand the pressure that you who have children. I have a wonderful partner in Indiana. She's one of my very best friends. She's divorced from a scumbag. And, yeah, he's icky. And she gets up in the morning and she has to make the decision. Am I going to cover that court hearing or am I going to take my kids to school? Now, I never have to make that decision. But one of the things that she has done, just like you said, is that she now represents her kids' school. She dropped her kids off enough times and became friends enough with the principal of the school that when they had a particular legal issue, they called her. So business development is something that you do with the stuff that's on your desk and in your network. And it doesn't necessarily mean going out and getting new clients, although that's wonderful and awesome, and thanks to Paige. I got dumped into a new client yesterday. Her father had a contact who said, with all this stuff in the news, I think we need some sexual harassment training. I went up there and met them in Boca yesterday. They needed that training about 2 years ago. But yes, I'm going to be doing it on February 2nd. Yeah, and the fact that they haven't been sued 90 times is pretty amazing. But it's that kind of thing, and it is tough to find. But a lot of time, it is something as simple as I met this person. and I'm going to send them a card, and I'm just going to say, hey, listen, here's an article that I think you would be interested in, or I know you said that you were interested in, Peruvian restaurants. There's a new one right off of Las Olas. I thought, whatever it is, and it can be with email. I tend to do more things in writing, but I'm not talking about sitting there and having this complex plan and going and meeting with the McDonald's. I would love to do that, Carolina. I would love to have the time to do that. But what I have the time to do is to use you all and the rest of my network to make those connections. And most of the time, it results in something really cool. So, whoop, skipped over one, yeah. Example.
Isn't one of the differences between men and women too that when we refer someone, we're not really, there's no expectation that, okay, tit for tat, now you have to do something for me. And with men, it seems like there's more, if I do this for you, you need to do something for me.
And I really, you're absolutely right. I haven't decided in my own universe. I'm happy to make the referral because I think I'm putting two wonderful people together. I have a client called Thorgard, very cool client, Lightning Prediction Systems, the only company in the world that does that. So if you're at the park with your kids and the horn goes off because you're going to have, that's this company. It is an awesome, cool company. And they needed a new accountant, and I referred them to Meredith Tucker at Kaufman Rossum because she's part of this group. Now, I have every expectation that Meredith will refer something back, but that's not why I did it. I did it because my client needed a good accountant, and Meredith is a very good accountant. Yes, I think we have different expectations. In my experience, that's not such a bad thing. I would never, refer somebody to one of you and say, oh, and by next Thursday, I expect to have a new client from you. That's not the way I think, and maybe I should be a little bit more aggressive about it, but I will tell you that my experience is it happens when it happens. And it's opportunistic. We're going to talk about opportunistic business development in just a second. But when Carolina was talking about a sample of business development techniques, client visit, webinars and teleconferences, client interviews. This is where you go to your client, you ask them kind of how you're doing. You don't do it, but you have somebody do those. I'm sure you guys in the room are much more sophisticated about that than we are. But reverse seminars. Every year I represent Rick Case. Every year I have Rick and Rita Case come in and tell us about the new cars that they have. Tell us about what's going on in your business. Tell us what and now they have a Maserati dealership, so of course all the guys in the office are very excited. So reverse seminars, having your clients come in and talk to you. Legal audits, risk assessments, this can be for any kind of business overall. Seminars and continuing education. Social media content marketing. This is something that I'm kind of slow to the table and I'm still learning. I'm not that sophisticated in it. But I do know that there are a lot of people who get a lot of business and do a lot of networking on LinkedIn, and it's very, very successful. Ridiculously successful. Client alerts, newsletters, they still have a place in the mix. I know they sound kind of old-fashioned, but I do a lot of writing for the Daily Business Review. I wrote an article last week about the new tax implications about the sexual harassment settlements that came out of the new tax law that no one was really paying attention to because it was an employment law that was wrapped up in a tax law, which isn't supposed to happen. And it got picked up by Bloomberg, and then it got picked up by some others, and I got called, and that was lovely. But most importantly, what I was able to do is I was able to put the information on my social media and show my clients for free what they need to know. And that to me was really a blessing. Client mini retreats. Once or twice a year, I try to get some of my women clients, and we go over to Bliss, and we get our nails done just because we can. And that's okay. I don't play golf. I'm guessing some of you do. I cannot imagine spending 4 hours chasing a little ball. I would have those clubs wrapped around that tree so fast. I have no patience for that kind of stuff. I believe that spouses should have separate hobbies. My husband played golf at Duke. He plays golf. He can do it all day long. Don't care. That's not my thing. But once in a while, it's nice to take a few of your clients, go to a mini retreat, not terribly expensive, nice way to spend a day. Pro bono work for client charities. We talked about the WSVN thing, doing things in your office. It's stuff that you all do anyway. Just make sure that you tell the world. It is okay to say, hey, listen, we took 72 gifts down to Puerto Rico to give them to special needs kids. That is okay. It is okay to say the good things that you do. It's not bragging. It's not doing. Have you ever met a guy who didn't win something or do something that was, even if it really was very cool, that didn't tell the whole friggin' world about it? No, that's not the way it works. we're not very good at promoting ourselves. Promote yourself. Do it in a way that attracts the kind of clients that you want. People who have common interests to what you have. Opportunistic. This is the stuff that falls out of the sky. So we've talked about strategic and tactical. This is the stuff that I love. I have been known for many years that if you stick me on enough planes with enough first-class tickets, I will probably come back with a client, because I have this captive guy, generally guy, sitting next to me, and if you're going to make me sit there for 5 hours, I'm probably going to talk to him. And I'm probably going to find out what they need and how I can help and all of that stuff. And that's what happened. I had a 5:45 a.m. flight. I am the person who takes those 5:45 a.m. flights from Fort Lauderdale up to Chicago. Had to change planes in Atlanta. Plane's late, delayed. Very nice guy gets on the plane, sits next to me. His name is Bob O'Neill, and he almost missed it. He was the last one to come in before they shut the door. Plane was delayed anyway, but he's sitting there. We're both getting a little anxious because we both have connections. And he says to me, "Did you see this PBS special of last night? Did you stay up and watch the PBS special about the Bee Gees?" Now, please tell me that all of you know who the Bee Gees are. Because I did this for my young attorneys, and I got a lot of blank stares. But I said, no, I didn't get to see it. He says, it was excellent. He says, I take care of Barry Gibb's horses. And that started a whole conversation, because although I like horses and I like Barry Gibb, never really put the two things together, and I was very interested in what he did. So we talked about it for a long time. We finally get to Atlanta. He's racing to catch his plane. I'm racing. We exchange business cards. He's racing, I'm racing. He sends me an email while he's waiting. He says, "Nice sitting and chatting with you on the Delta flight. Made my flight. We're not even boarding yet. Safe trip." And he sent that. And he's also the chief vet at Gulfstream Park. Now, I don't know anything about equine law. Nothing. But I do know that there's a woman in my firm who does. So he doesn't have any employees. Couldn't help him on my side of the fence, but that's okay. So I sent him an email. "Hello, Bob. Hello again, Bob. I'm on the flight to Chicago. So far, so good. Hope you get to Charleston without incident. As promised, I would like to introduce to you my wonderful partner, Yvonne Okran. Yvonne is admitted to practice in Florida and Illinois, and is a horse owner herself. She spends part of the year in Florida and works with her many clients in the Wellington, Ocala markets. Like you, she grew up in the horse business and is an expert in all areas of the legal world on horse ownership and care. In addition to all that, she is truly a wonderful person." She's still working for him. I made the introduction. I included her on the email. I sent it. I was done. I went into Chicago and did my thing. But it was that connection that really meant something to her. And it really all goes back to lead identification and pursuit. Every step of the business development opportunity starts with this. Business development leads have a certain energy. I believe this with every fiber. If you go to a mixer or you go to a function and you get a stack of business cards, and those business cards sit on your desk, there is a point in time where you will realize that you are not going to contact those people, that they are stale. I believe that the energy that comes with them needs to be acted on immediately. And I mean, I didn't even have to do it. Bob sent me the email before I could even get to my gate and said, "Nice talking to you, glad he made his flight." Great. But they have an energy, and the sooner the better. Send a follow-up, set up a lunch, offer an introduction to another Hinshaw attorney or another client. Delay creates distance. Delay creates distance. And especially because I still believe in business cards or e-cards, whatever it is, but not that many of them have pictures, and I'm getting old, and sometimes I'll look at the card, and unless they're really kind of unique cards, sometimes I don't remember who the face is that goes with that card, and I'm wondering if I'm actually sending the right thank you card saying the right things in it. So the sooner the better. The 5 traps women need to avoid regarding business development. I don't like to ask people for business. So every day we get up, and for those of you with children, you take your kids to school and you ask the teacher whether or not they can be moved to a different plan or program. Sometimes you go to work and the first thing you do is that you have this issue and you go to your IT department and you ask them, you have this idea about restructuring this issue so that you can get this particular project done. Sometimes you come into, you'll go into a particular meeting and they'll be trying to decide on a course of action, and you'll set forth and you'll advocate your position or your team's position, whatever it is. It's exactly the same skill set. You do this every day. You don't have any problem asking your kid's teacher to be moved. You don't have any problem at all asking your IT department to help you get something organized. You have no problem at all going in and advocating for your particular position. It's the same skill set. And I never, ever ask for business. What do you need? How can I help? That's why we're better at this. What do you need? How can I help? And if they say, honestly, that they don't need my help, I am perfectly okay with that. That is not rejection. And even if it were, I wouldn't care. I don't have a real issue with that. But I know I've asked the right questions. And I'll tell you, about 80% of the time, wouldn't you guys love it if somebody came up to you and said, what do you need and how can I help? Wouldn't you love it if you could take the 5 worst things on your desk and give them to somebody else? Wouldn't you love that? I'd love that. Nobody ever asked me that. But nonetheless, I know that as business women, you guys are really good at this.
I just make a comment based on what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Please do.
Well, I think many women, when you ask them that question, they don't know. So I would encourage people to
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Absolutely.
Right?
Figure it
Because
out.
When you say, what do you need? How can I help? That's a really good question. I really don't know.
Let me
And
think
they miss
about
the
it.
opportunity.
Oh, no, go
And
ahead.
so-
Hey, if Paige were silly enough to ask me that question, I have a list about this one. Yeah, no. And, and since she's an associate, those are the things that associates do, But yeah, I agree. And I think that one of the things that, we all know what our challenges are in our business. And some of the things can't be fixed because I've been pretty honest with this group that I've had some, like everybody else, I've got a management person that I struggle with. And, sure, I would like the question to be, what do you need and how can you help? I would like that person to go to a different law firm. Their issues are big. When I asked Meredith that question, she said, could you just help me figure this out with this policy having to do with these particular drivers? Can you just walk me through this? You gotta be ready for both, because you're gonna ask the question and someone's gonna answer it. You gotta be ready for the big stuff and the little stuff. But I find that that their issues are more focused and less general. And I've combined trap number 2 and 3 here. I can't count, although math is still a challenge. I am in a business area where it is really hard to get recognized. The relationships the men have are too deep. I wanted to bring this to the environmental Miss Sue, because I loved the way you talked about your boss. That was awesome. She is in an environmental, she's in this male-dominated business, and she goes in there and takes no prisoners and go for it. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, Sandy is a bulldozer.
Right.
And,
Right.
I've heard people sort of talking down to her, and it just goes over her head. She just keeps going.
Yeah. It's funny, with everything in the news now about, men and sexual harassment, of course, my desk is full. Got lots of stuff. Men behaving badly all over the place. And it's not just men. I've got all kinds of stuff going on. But I had this happen to me a few years ago when I was younger. But I was representing a family business, and there was a son who was in the business who was about my age. And he was kind of in the business because they couldn't find any place else to put him, if you get my drift, that generation skipping thing. And I was doing an investigation regarding an allegation of sexual harassment, not against him. He was not the alleged perpetrator. But I'm asking him questions. And at one point, he starts hitting on me. And like I said, I was younger. And I sit there for a second. And women have different ways of handling this. And my way to handle it was to say, Brian, I am the employment attorney hired by your father to investigate things that are going on here. If I were you, I would be really careful about the next thing that comes out of your mouth. Well, I didn't mean anything. I said, I didn't say you did. Just be very careful about what you're going to say next. And I'm guessing that Sandy has a similar technique to deal with people who kind of say, what are you doing in this business? What do you know about cleaning up environmental stuff? I could have said all kinds of things, but my answer was, you should probably think about what you're going to say next. And I will tell you, most of the time when you actually tell them they have to think, it really stops them in their tracks. They actually sit and say, somebody asked me, I had to think. And it does. It's important that you understand that it is hard. It is hard. It's hard every day sometimes when you know you're not recognized. All of you wonderful women in the commercial real estate field, I have no idea how you do what you do. I have no clue. I watch these men power through. I get emails because I'm the managing partner here of this office. My lease is up in 2019, and I get emails from these very aggressive men saying, you know, you need to move, and here's where you need to move, and we can do this, and all this other stuff. Delete, delete, delete. You know, I delete them all. I have the utmost regard for what you do, because even though my business is mostly men, as far as I can tell, your business is almost all men. And how you ladies do what you do in that field is truly amazing. But you're proof that perseverance does work. It does work.
And a different approach.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I focus on having the non-male approach, you know, and the things that you're talking about, you know, really resonate because, you know, you do get men that go in and just start mansplaining everything to, you know, the client. And I've gone on pitches where you just sit there and I'm like, are you ever going to shut up and let me talk? You know what I mean?
So they don't start the conversation off with what do you need and how can I help? Yeah.
No, they never even get to that. They've already got it figured out.
Right.
So.
Right. No, I agree. I see that a lot too. I will never get access to the decision makers. This happens to a lot of people who are in industries who are in primary sales. So they have something that they're selling, whether it's cleaning services or photocopiers or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes that is very difficult. Here is what I've learned. I've learned that it's often not the decision makers who are really the decision makers, it's their assistants. Here's what I know about one of my primary clients. I know that I am never going to get him on the phone to make a decision about strategy in a case. I know that. I know that he's busy and he's doing all this stuff and all that other stuff. But his assistant, Anushka, she's actually the one who runs the rodeo. Remember that decision makers are not necessarily the people that we think we are. We are better at developing the relationships with the people who get things done. We are just better at that. Those people have the access. See, once you have that relationship with the receptionist, the assistant, the office manager, whatever it is, those people will get you to the decision maker. Am I ever going to get a meeting by picking up the phone and calling the general counsel at McDonald's and saying, hey, I'm a really good employment lawyer, you should talk to me? No. But I know one of the young lawyers there who started off as a general counsel like Meredith at another one of my clients and recently moved over there, and she's going to get me lunch with the next person above her. And I'm okay with that. Because it is a ladder concept. And it's okay. Do not get frustrated if you can't start with the general counsel of McDonald's. It's okay.
But can I bring up a point?
Sure.
Of, you know, what can I do? How can I help? Also pertains to, I just had 2 clients suddenly get pushed out of their organizations, you know. And I was one of the first persons to call and say, hey, you know, what can I do?
Absolutely.
How can I help? And I know, you know, I just had coffee with one. He's in his severance pay bliss, so he's not thinking about anything. But I know that when he's ready to do something, just like the last time, I'll be the first person that he calls on those types of things. And, you know, I think that, you know, when I was in a situation where that happened to me, the people who reached out to me immediately afterwards were the people that I knew truly valued my relationship with them. And I think that, you know, yes, it could be embarrassing how they lost their job or, you know, it could have been whatever, but I think just saying, hey, when you're ready, I'd love to get together with you. You know, how can I help you? Have you thought about your next step? And it really resonates with people when they're at the lowest moment,
Right.
the person who contacts
And
them.
Elizabeth, I think that point is extremely well taken, because here's another, what I think is a key difference between men and women. Men identify their customers and their clients by the job they do, not by the person they are. I think women are more likely to identify with the person. So even if that person doesn't have that job, we still respect the person, not the title. And that, you Elizabeth?
Wow, that was super fast.
I just got dropped right off of putting gas in your car. That is not the time to be doing business development. It is when you're busy, there's energy that goes with that. You've got these kind of relationships, you can make it happen. You own your future. I love this. it took me a long time to get to the point in my career where I was comfortable saying to the powers that be in Chicago that you can do whatever you want, I just won't be here. I realize that many of you are not quite there yet, or you own your own business because you went through that and you decided that that's the decision you wanted to make. You wanted to own your own future. You were tired of saying, I think some of you have probably seen this commercial, the woman who works at the architect company, and she's trying to answer she's an architect, but she answers the phone for the guys and he won't take the calls, and then he gets in the elevator and doesn't wait for her and goes down and all that, and then she just goes and opens her own accounting firm, her own architecture firm. You own your future, and it doesn't happen today and it doesn't happen tomorrow. We all need to earn a living. We wouldn't be in the business if we didn't. But learning to get to the point where you feel that you have choices and options is the most liberating thing in the world. And part of why I love TCI is because I know that if I ever got to a point where I needed to know what my options were, I can call these ladies. And they would say, Cheryl, I think you should do this. I think you should do this. And I think it's wonderful. It is 9:45. I've exhausted my time. I want to thank you all very, very much for being here today. I hope that I did not. Oh yeah, no, I'm still here for questions. I just wanted to let you know that my slides are done. Okay. And since the business professor did not walk out, I'm guessing I didn't flunk miserably. Yeah. Listen, we're going to have a business professor. Really? Oh, that's just great. Yeah. So thank you all for coming. And I'm here for questions and of course additional dialogue. Without me is fine too. So.
Yeah, and let's, if we want to open up for questions, then I have a couple things housekeeping things to go over.
Absolutely.
But let's see, questions, comments, and I have a question, and it's for everyone. So who was it who talked about the next set of questions after the two? Mm-hmm. Where do you go with that? I mean, what are those questions? What are good questions at work? The next set, and I think Meryl, you mentioned what with your clients. Then, if they're not answering the first two, kind of what would be some good questions next?
Well, I mean, it probably depends on the industry. For me as a financial advisor, a lot of times we'll ask about, we'll get into the children, we'll get into things that keep you up at night. We'll get into,
I like that one.
Yeah, what keeps you up at night always is, we also ask about what is the greatest value that your other teams of advisors are bringing to the table for you. Because we want to, kind of get at what they value in relationships. So, and then it kind of leads to the next sets of questions.
I have a question.
Of course.
I've been transitioning over the last, I'd say 2 years from being a doer as a project manager to a seller doer of my services. And I'm trying to make that next giant leap into selling the services of other doers in my firm, but I'm still a doer and I am so helpful and I'm so excited. My clients love me, and so my boss wants me to continue to be a doer because that's what he needs on his staff. So I'm meeting a lot of resistance from my direct boss, yet the other people in my firm are seeing that I'm creating my own client opportunities, bringing in new business on my own without their support, but also joining them on pitches and succeeding in that. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice for how to make that transition out of the doer as much, even though that's my bread and butter and that's what should be earning my pay.
And it isn't necessarily fish or chicken. You can do both, but if everybody else in the firm except your boss knows that you can do fish and chicken, as hard as it may be, I would suggest that a conversation to say, I cannot tell you how much I enjoy working on your projects and how wonderful it is to succeed with you. But at this point in my career, I'm transitioning and there's some tension between what you think my job is and what the other folks think my job is. I don't want to disappoint you or them, but my future is on the business development side.
Right. Okay.
And that can be a tough conversation, and I will tell you that management person that I told you about who I want to go to another law firm, I'm telling you that I cannot have that conversation with that person. I know that. Now I have other avenues that I can go to, but that I cannot have that conversation with that person. So sometimes that you have to make the decision, but I find that the first way to start that conversation is, I can't thank you enough for the chance to work with you to do these things. As you know, because of what I've learned, I'm now transitioning into another area of business, and although I still want to be there on your team and I still want to be a vital part of your team, I know that you want me to succeed in these other things. And go ahead,
The other thing that might be interesting is if you show him, here's what I have on my plate, and this is gonna make this money, this is gonna make this money, if we can delegate this to this person, and then you map it all out, and here's my suggestion, what do you think? Lets them,
Making a business case for it.
yeah, lets him believe you're in control, he can still support you in the way, and you're thinking about it in the way, and obviously you know him the best, so you figure out like what keeps him up at night. So if you know that, then you prioritize based on like what he's thinking about. So then it's easy for you to kind of put on paper, and then they have to decide, do you want me here doing this work, which obviously makes more, I don't know if it'll support it, maybe this does make you more money, but
Right.
so if you can kind of put it that way, it might help you.
But it's also important that you don't become a cog in his wheel. If the fact that you're a doer makes money for him, even though it's not promoting you have to draw that line. I feel very strongly that you cannot forfeit your career for somebody else. You deserve that opportunity. Meredith, you had a